Only a week away until the play-in. Truly one of those moments in the NBA where things get intense. The seeding this time around is as close as ever, with each win and loss being oh so crucial. So much strategy, so much at stake. And yet, during this madness, there's a team that I honestly can't take my eyes off of. The Memphis Grizzlies? Huh. Now, if you're confused by this statement, I don't blame you. Very much the opposite of everything going on in the playoff picture, and around 3 to 4 months ago, this team was everything but watchable. And yes, by everything, I mean everything. From their inefficient play, to the less than immaculate vibes. Yeah, this was from their second game. From then on, the vibes somehow got even worse, with fans becoming increasingly frustrated with the group, Ja getting involved in more heated altercations, and even the owner himself being revealed as a war criminal? He also was apparently furious when someone he previously met thought that Justin Timberlake owned the Grizzlies. Oh my goodness, you can't make this up. All of this messiness led to the Grizzlies looking totally lost, with tons of questions looming over them, a far cry from what they were when they first announced themselves on the scene back in 2022. By the time we approached the end of January, the Grizzlies found themselves 11 games under 500. When going through these series of unfortunate events, this doesn't seem like a team that's fun to follow at all, so you might be wondering, what changed all of a sudden? Why do I have this team so high up on my most viewed category when I just listed almost every negative imaginable? Well, that's an easy explanation. The trade deadline happened. On February 3rd, Memphis traded Jaren Jackson Jr., Vince Williams Jr., John Conchar, and Jock Landale to the Utah Jazz for 3 first-round picks, Taylor Hendricks, Walter Clayton Jr., and some salary filler. A shocking blockbuster, no doubt, as this move officially helped set the timetables for both parties. With Memphis, you can tell they were treading waters with starting over, especially when they sent Bane to Orlando prior to the season starting, but this transaction solidified the notion that the Grizzlies are officially entering their names in the race for the lottery. I was so thrilled when this trade was announced, partially because there wasn't much motion happening at the time, but mostly for the fact it meant that Memphis is tearing things down. I love when the front office realizes what they have isn't working, and the writing was on the wall for a while with this Grizzlies squad. So having a front office that can take action and garner as much value as possible is very gratifying, especially when there's other sorts of management. However, I'll admit it would be a little foolish if I make the claim that everyone was feeling this way. Jaren was undoubtedly a beloved figure in Memphis, as he had done a lot for the city up to this point. He had his flaws, but he embraced the city of Memphis from the very beginning, and the city embraced him back. Not to mention, tanking sucks. Despite odd fellas like me feeling more intrigued about the team's clearer picture, I would be lying if I claimed it's an overall positive experience. Yeah, you're gonna be bad for a purpose, just as long as that purpose comes with being embarrassed on the regular for at least a couple of years. For as much as the biggest fans would love to support their favorite team through their darkest days, I know for a fact there's only so much bad basketball they can take. Imagine you get home from a long, grueling day of work, and how you'll spend your Friday evening is either getting to see Will Riley drop 20 and 10 in a blowout, or binge watching your favorite TV show. Oh no, such a tough choice, whatever shall I choose? So for most individuals following the Grizzlies, the rest of the 2026 season is a wash. A portion that feels like a dread to go through, and almost certainly will be treated as forgotten history once it's all said and done. But if you ask me, it couldn't be more of the opposite. In spite of their current situation, this team has shown many polarizing themes throughout the season. In fact, these themes get super polarizing to the point where I believe multiple of them could potentially alter their future, their chances for brighter days. You usually don't expect such conversation going on from an organization in rebuilding mode, so what's going on? Let's talk about it. We can begin with the more entertaining aspects because despite this newer version of Memphis having much less talent, they still deliver interesting results, the immense shift in energy being the biggest example. This team cares now, which I guess makes sense considering the roster is now filled with 10 days and players with less than 3 years of experience, meaning everyone's out to prove something. I do want to clarify, it's not like Memphis didn't have life in all of their games pre-trade deadline, but I could see that in most of their contests, they were checked out. Sometimes the body language goes sour, other times it was horrific communication. Whatever the reason may be, their intensity level never seemed to be on par with their opponents. Nowadays, it couldn't be more different since it's almost a guarantee that the new guys will provide maximum effort. You'll see more diving for loose balls, more pressure being applied defensively, and more pride overall. Heck, with some of their hustle plays, you can make the argument that it's not too far off from their effort back in the grit and grind days. So even when the wins don't come by as frequently, at least we can rely on this squad being willing to put in their best. Defensively, they go after it as well, specifically with the amount of steals they get. The Grizzlies did noticeably get smaller in size, thus allowing increased flexibility to execute switching and faster rotations on defense. The Grizzlies as of this moment find themselves in the top 10, ranked 8th in steals per game, and in the last 10 games are averaging 9.6 steals per contest. This strength was exemplified in the month of March, as they ranked 4th in the NBA at 9.7. But in spite of the success with steals, the lack of size does come with a cost. There's no longer an interior presence to deter shots at the rim. Not a surprise, that's what usually happens when an elite shot blocker is suddenly traded. The defense wasn't the only thing that was affected though, the offense was also forced to change. What stands out about Memphis offensively is that the ball's moving a ton. As of this recording, they rank 10th in assists per game, but what's really intriguing to me is that they heavily rely on these passes to generate their offense. In most cases, teams would typically rely on an elite scoring threat to produce open looks, whether from attracting multiple defenders or through isolation. Memphis unfortunately doesn't have that luxury, so they essentially have to move the ball around to create their own space. Sprinkle in a lot of slip screens to enhance that separation, and you get a big portion of Memphis' game plan. Not a surprise we're seeing this given Coach Isalo is from Finland, and as we all know, Europe is very serious on team play. I do feel the need to elaborate though that this offense does have its limitations. Despite me being a sucker for ball movement, that style of play is not sustainable for an entire 48-minute span. Unless the team is abhorrent defensively, opponents will catch on and adjust easily because as mentioned earlier, there is no budding superstar available here. Emphasis on available. Don't get me wrong, the Grizzlies have their fair share of scorers, but each one is filled with flaws on specific areas, and as a result, none are trustworthy enough to carry the offense on their own. Again, implementing these slip screens isn't awful since it's well known they're hard to guard, but seeing Grizzlies players constantly draining their energy moving around and slipping by, while an opponent can simply rely on their best player to pull up, really puts it in perspective how quickly things can go wrong. Plus, if Memphis faces an adversary that's filled with lethal perimeter defenders known to fight over screens with ease, that just makes the production even more difficult. However, not every possession will end in passing on the fly. Isalo can occasionally run some set plays. The most common one is the Spain pick and roll, similar to what Mazzulla runs in Boston. Although from what I've seen, Isalo's usage of it is pretty one-dimensional. Unlike Mazzulla's that produces various choices, Isalo only runs it for guys that attack the paint well. It also gets more aggravating when the rate Isalo calls for this play call isn't really frequent at all. It's a shame, but I think what's worth noting is that Isalo wasn't dealt a great hand with the sudden roster change. The aforementioned absence of Jaren altered a significant chunk of the game plan, since he was constantly fed his daily post-ups and drives of finesse. So having to go from that to a bunch of new faces still getting accommodated with each other is quite the shock. So I can only assume how Isalo manages this offense is a matter of who does he trust more. Not trying to justify the slip-ups in offensive execution, but it's normal for coaches to need time to figure things out, and that's what Tuomas is dealing with. Don't be mistaken, this definitely doesn't excuse Isalo from his utter patented coaching decisions. Oh no, we'll be getting to that later. I guess discussing a topic I'm potentially concerned with is a fitting transition to our next segment. Actual concerns. The lack of a primary playmaker since Ja had been sidelined has become the top one. I mean, they attempted something different with Vince Williams and it wasn't horrible.
Oh, forget it. It's gone. That's not bad.
But he did get moved and screwed, so who's next up? Initially, it seemed like Cam Spencer would have been the best candidate for the job, as he turns the ball over the least and has a keen eye for cutters. As the season progressed, however, his passing skill set never really expanded beyond finding the open man. Aside from the botched outcomes when Spencer did try passes outside of his comfort zone, Isalo would assign him with scoring and spacing. Not surprising, since that's how he is on the scouting report. You will more likely see step-back threes than a behind-the-back. Unfortunately, when you go past him and examine the long list of names, no one else is much better. They can all make the average reads, but ordering them to organize the offense and set their teammates up is a tall task. The only passes I would see these guys convert successfully are kick-out passes to the corner after penetrating the lanes, which is extremely basic, Furthermore, when there is no natural playmaker available, along with the aforementioned fact of Memphis needing to move the ball around to get things going, you get turnovers. These turnovers come in a variety of ways, from the bad entry passes to the failed wraparounds, courtesy of Jerome. Javon Small and Walter Clayton have also been responsible in this department, but it's par for the course with rookies. It happens. What also has to happen for Memphis regarding this problem is they get their youngins to properly develop this trait, take a specialist in the draft, or keep Ja. Because regardless of what occurs with Moran's future, we can at least all take solace in the fact that he's the best in this skill. He may not have panned out how we all wanted him to, but at least he can make a cross-court pass. Overall, a very unsatisfactory component of the season that I will gladly burn from my memory. Next up, we have simply one of the best tanking strategies I have seen. Not trying to be funny, this is honestly one of the best ways to purposefully lose while looking ethical, and that is to not have a center on your roster. After the trade deadline, the only big men that were left for the Grizzlies were Edey and Brandon Clark, both diagnosed with long-term injuries. I mean, they did sign Taj Gibson, but he's 40 years old. Do you expect him to start games? So ultimately, that forces Memphis' power forwards to move up to the 5. And when it comes to rebounding, it's what you expect. Yo, OMAX, my guy. It's clear you've been so great for us, so how about we reward you by having you face guys 4 to 5 inches taller than you? And is that Slow-Mo himself? Buddy, oh, good to have you back. It's been a while. Would you mind boxing out Donovan Clingan for 20 plus minutes? Aw, thanks, you're the best. No wonder he signed with Minnesota so quickly. Now, I'm not saying deploying small ball when facing these usual centers is entirely bad. Prosper has been wonderful when it comes to stretching the floor and has even caused trouble for roaming big men who specialize in drop coverage. It's just when you have this method for the entire game, very rarely would things go your way, especially when you're up against rebounding experts. Not just elite rebounders, if a team has enough players that can cause havoc on the offensive glass, that causes even more hurdles to overcome for Memphis. Rebounding can often be overlooked in favor of scoring and assists, so if anyone is wondering how crucial it can be, I'm sure showing them a Grizzlies game will be enough to do the job. Can't forget about the amount of mismatches they have to deal with too. Although the squad has a bunch of solid defenders, there's not much they can do with bigger guys inside. Once again, a superb tanking method, very under the radar. Rest your best players? Nah, we'd much rather give up 11 rebounds to Miles Turner. All according to plan. Speaking of players resting, this does bring up our next significant topic impacting Memphis. And it's no secret that this term is a recurring theme here. Injuries. Every team per usual has had these unfortunate circumstances, but it seems like with the Grizzlies, it just seems to jump to another level. Especially for this season. Look at this! What is this? Oh my heavens, it gets worse! Not saying the Grizzlies were the best group when healthy, but when the bench is constantly filled with street clothes and empty chairs, you get the feeling that they never had much time to gel. And the timing of these injuries makes it even worse, particularly when we look at two of Memphis' most impactful players in Ja Morant and Zach Edey. We all know how much of a force Ja can be at his best, and Edey has taken tremendous strides. Yet, we never saw the duo at work together. They only played in one game, and the real kicker was that it didn't even last that long. Ja got injured after only 6 minutes of play, and when he eventually did return, Edey was already out for the season. I repeat, that's only 6 minutes mustered out of this potentially dangerous pair. Oh, but it doesn't stop there. Jerome, who was viewed as one of the more underrated free agent signings, couldn't make his debut until January 31st, literally days before the trade deadline. Additionally, another significant guard in Scottie Pippen Jr. couldn't make his debut until days after the trade deadline on February 6. He only played in 10 games, then was announced for another surgery, alongside Santi Aldama. If this isn't the definition of cursed, then I don't know what is. As is the case with Memphis in recent years, they just can't seem to catch a break. Always something to dampen the mood. Yet, there is an important category they can hang their hat on. Their development team. They were getting commended for their ability to nail second rounders, and they have also recently started to hit their lottery selections. The Grizzlies currently have a ton of appealing names, and I figure might as well give a shout out to the ones that caught my attention the most.
Rejected by Edey! You gonna tell me that guy is not athletic?
Easily the one that showed the most promise. Which breaks my heart even more that we only witnessed 11 games out of him. It sucks that Zach suffered this major injury because not only does this halt his development, he was also on a roll. Even if the sample size is small, it was just enough to display that Edey's impact on both sides of the ball was for real, mainly on the defensive end. Adversaries found shots on the inside were very hard to come by. He was always such a looming presence, and if your threes weren't successfully converting against his drop coverage, then oh boy, you were in for a long game. As for the offense, it was starting to come along. Seemed like Coach Isalo and co was intent on having all of his shot selection being near the basket. a contrast to how he was in his rookie year, where it seemed like Jenkins wanted him to stretch the floor a little. As expected of the Giant, he's automatic when next to the rim, but for shots requiring some finesse, it was clear he needed more polish. What's encouraging though is that Edey's teammates were glad to feed him post touches, which just adds to the pain of how much we missed out on a reliable hookshot, man. Regardless, it's encouraging to see the improvement, and safe to say I'm pretty stoked to see how he progresses next season. Speaking of players I'm stoked for,
And the foul!
the 6'9" forward out of Central Florida seemed to have been lost in the Utah shuffle after a promising rookie season. From the abundance of wings the Jazz seemed to have at their disposal, to his horrible leg injury in his sophomore season, any promise Hendricks might have had was decreasing by the minute. But I'm extremely glad to report that ever since Hendricks has landed at Memphis, he has put those concerns to the side. We are so back, baby, the stocks has never been so up! Similar to Edey, defense is where Taylor is making his mark. He can hold his own one-on-one due to his long wingspan being beneficial for achieving many blocks and steals. Averaging 1.3 steals, while close to a block per contest, Hendricks has become another threat to mess up the passing and driving lanes. In addition, I've seen plenty of times where his help defense was on point, and if he continues to practice on his timing, it will do absolute wonders for his game. Offensively, it's a bit of a mixed bag. There were flashes where his 3-point shot was falling, and I could see the makings of an effective stretch 4. It has yet to be consistent though, as the percentage is only around 32% as a Grizzly. The shooting woes continue with Taylor's free throws as well, since he's only making 60% of them. Another nitpick is for some better efficiency inside. As mentioned, with his long wingspan, it would feel like a missed opportunity if the close looks aren't converted. He even sets some hard screens when being the roller in the pick and roll, which feels like that in itself is an opportunity to expand his skill set, but only if Taylor can finish better around the rim. Although these nitpicks sound drastic, I do want to make clear that fixing any one of these issues will put him on another level because defensively, he already covers so much. There are situations where a player's potential is too good to ignore because of the damage he can do once he fixes his errors, and I believe Taylor fits that bill. Also, he deserves some grace considering this season alone, he's played in more games than his previous 2 combined. So to still be this productive, even after all of those conundrums, is very promising. I feel like it's safe to say that along with the enticing draft capital, Memphis also got themselves a hidden gem from the Jaren trade. Oh man, can you imagine him and Edey together as the frontcourt? Oh my god, that would be so good!
Oh, Javon Small!
The West Virginia guard has become a revelation these past couple of weeks, and you can tell with each passing day, Small garners more and more confidence. He has an underrated offensive skill set, starting with his gather step. It's becoming one of my favorite signatures because not only does this benefit him when driving, as he's notably undersized, but he can also slow down during this process. Similar to how guys like Stephon Castle, Ben Seraf, and Luka Doncic do it, Javon Small is another player who recognizes how much this gather step can catch the defense off guard. It's not a guarantee he'll do this every time he attacks the basket, but there's definitely lots of intriguing potential if he can work on it more, as he's already displayed several instances of utilizing it to his advantage. He also has his own version of a quality step back. Cam Spencer ain't the only one. As he continues to master this move, the results behind the arc get more and more positive. Also, can we talk about Small's athleticism? There were moments where he genuinely surprised me. Dude got bounce. Last but not least, the other rookie in Cedric Coward, who was the talk of the town early into the season. He found himself high on the rookie ladder and his percentages looked really nice pre-All-Star break. Then we switched to the stats post-All-Star break and almost everything dips across the board. Not ideal, but we gotta remember the circumstances Coward was in during both of these spans. Early in the season, Morant and Jackson Jr. were the big names to look out for on the scouting report. Get rid of them, who would the next target be? How about the rookie who had a very hot start to the year? In terms of utilization early on, Memphis had Coward come off of dribble handoffs, sometimes curl screens in order to make his driving easier. Fast forward to now, there's not much of that. Nowadays, whenever he gets the ball, it feels like Coward is being tested on how good his shot creation really is. It also doesn't help that Cedric is in Isalo's really weird, hey, you know what? Now's not the time. Now is not the time. So those are the main players I have my eyes on, but I'll be amiss if I claim that's all you should look forward to on this squad. You know how we do it here, we show some hidden gems. OMAX everybody! Olivier Maxence Prosper is the first player I want to give a shout out to because it felt like his career was over once he got waived by Dallas. Lengthy wings who can't find any luck behind the arc usually never end well in this brutal league. Despite that, Prosper defied the odds, turning his shooting around in tremendous fashion. I briefly discussed OMAX countering drop coverage well, and it appears that refined stroke has spread to other areas. Almost 40% from 3, 65% from 2s, and 76% from the free throw line, all career highs. The pure definition of a career revival, as I'm sure this stint has helped extend his time in the NBA a bit longer. And I know hindsight is 2020, but seeing Prosper improve this much might sting Dallas a little, especially now that they're stuck with Caleb Martin. Excuse me. Celtics fan, I couldn't contain myself.
How you feel?
I feel pretty good.
Me too. I'm ready to go kick your butt in some ping pong.
Oh.
Why you look at me like that?
He's the best defensive player Memphis has got, and you will see him guarding the toughest matchups. The big negative is that his offensive game hasn't come around consistently. His shot selection is usually decent, just a matter of finishing his looks. Wells has also shown flashes of a potential mid-range, but it mostly consists of pull-up jumpers off the dribble. It remains a mystery to see if Wells will continue to work on that. Guess we'll have to see next season. Kinda funny how these two are the antithesis to each other since both are scoring threats, only in opposite aspects. Gigi is by far Memphis' best driver, as his lanky frame and athleticism allow him to go up to the rim comfortably and absorb contact. When Gigi slammeth, he shall slammeth with the utmost authority. A couple flaws are stopping him. First one is the tunnel vision. There have been multiple occasions where he is flinging himself into a sea of defenders, either leading to misses or not recognizing the open man. Next is the shooting, as expected. Something interesting to note though is there were games where Gigi was nailing his triples, so I feel like it's possible he can improve. Only time will tell. But on the other side, Cam Spencer fills those needs perfectly. Approximately 45% from 3 and not the worst passer. It's just that Cam isn't the most prominent driver, so it's quite the pickle. Maybe they can give each other tips? Except for defense. Cam, I'm gonna need you to work with Tony Allen in the offseason. I mentioned my thoughts on his shaky playmaking earlier, but he makes up for it by being the closest guy that can score on all 3 levels for the Grizzlies. Even if his driving isn't the strongest, he knows how to manipulate angles and is able to get many fouls called his way. You'd actually be surprised by the amount of trips Jerome has taken to the free throw line. He's always leaning his body in. Definitely injects himself in the niche free throw merchant category, I'll tell you that much. Plus, you can always rely on him to launch some insane bombs from long distance. Seriously, what in the world? Quite an interesting cast of characters if I do say so myself, more than what I expected from a rebuild no less. Though none are the leading piece, they've done well given what they're thrown into, and with more growth, lots of these guys will be here to stay. Can't really say the same for those with more power though. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure if them staying would benefit Memphis at all. The first in question is head coach Tuomas Isalo. He shouldn't be the scapegoat for how things turned out, but he's not helping either. What frustrates me the most about Tuomas are his unorthodox coaching habits, mainly his weird substitution system. It usually starts around the 7-minute mark in the first quarter, and this peculiar time management will continue throughout the game. It makes no difference whoever's on the court, the 5-minute mark has arrived, time to switch. I understand implementing this if an injury happens or the team comes out lifeless, but Isalo's just applying the system at will. From what I've seen, it doesn't matter if a guy is on a hot streak, they will get yanked. While I'm not totally against attempting something different from the rest of the league, if that change comes at the cost of your player's progress, then to me there's no reason to keep it. Especially for Javon, man, he would have great games and be the reason why Memphis gets close, only to get pulled and subbed back in when it's garbage time. The same goes for Coward. There were several instances where I was wondering if he was playing, only to realize he'd been seated on the bench for 10 plus minutes. Pretty much the opposite of how rookies should be developed in a rebuild, is it not? I understand Isalo places his approach on equal treatment. There's been interviews where he says he likes to hold everyone accountable, and that's fine. I just wonder how his philosophy will mesh when the Grizzlies inevitably land on their new number 1, because subbing him out with 8 minutes left in the 4th doesn't sound like a recipe for success to me. So yeah, a lot of criticism on Mr. Isalo here, but I will give him some room. This is his first year of the head coaching experience after all. Not to mention, he is nowhere close of a problem as our next person is. May I introduce you to Robert Pera, owner of the Memphis Grizzlies. It was noted in the beginning how unsettling the guy is, and I fear his influence will affect the on-court product too. If there's one consensus we can all agree about owners, they love money. They love it to the point where they're obsessed. Just the thought of losing a single dollar might make them puke. Consequently, sports groups need to spend a good chunk if they want to be relevant. That's the reality of the environment they're in. Therefore, you can assume both sides in play don't shake hands on this subject. aka the fiscal equivalent of oil and water. Even if Pera's greed isn't as highlighted as other owners, make no mistake, there was a time where questionable moves were underway, moves that looked as if they were meant to save. Let me take you back to the 2022 offseason, months after Memphis' ascension took place. The new era of grit and grind just took the eventual champions in Golden State to 6 games. In spite of the sour ending, hope was in the air. This was a gang on the rise and full of youth. Surely whoever was in charge can assist them with extra support. Nope. What actually transpired was the organization trading DeAnthony Melton for a draft pick and Danny Green, who only played in 3 games before going to Cleveland. Furthermore, they refused to re-sign Kyle Anderson and settled with a bunch of rookie-scale contracts. This didn't set the Grizz back in the regular season, but in the playoffs? Oh, we definitely remember what happened there. Aside from the usual Brooks and Morant storylines, the supporting cast didn't show up. When Tyus Jones struggled against LA, there was no one else. Oh wow, I wonder who could have helped there. And for the rookies, nothing much they could have done about the onslaught. I'm not declaring that preventing these moves would have changed the outcome, but it literally did Memphis no favors. I get that Zach Kleiman is the actual GM and is the one on the phone, but I find it hard to accept that Pera didn't have a voice, since as a reminder, 3 rookie-scale deals replacing 2 core members is very sketchy behavior. So with that, as much as I want to believe the Grizzlies can get back on their feet, Pera's chokehold on the franchise doesn't leave much optimism. I also gotta add that compared to a few years ago, the league is much higher in profit now. We see teams spending the big bucks in the hopes of retaining their guys, to the point where it's speculated that a yearly $100 million contract is inevitable. I don't like sounding overdramatic, but in the back of my head, I always worry if ownership is willing enough to engage in such discussions, because that difference in attitude is enough to make or break a team's history. Alas, that's all speculation, and sure enough, the end of this long video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'm curious what all of you think or feel about Memphis' future. Is it truly such a complicated affair, or am I off my rocker? Let me know in the comments down below, and remember, at least we are not the Pelicans. Yeah, you all better hope this isn't top 3.